Good evening, Red Star Rebels. It's September 29th, 2022. This is Season 2, podcast number 28, and we are Red Star Report. I'm Hal G. Lohr, and this is Voices for the California Nation. Today, as every chain restaurant in California descends to the fourth level of pumpkin spice hell, Southern California is locked in its climate change pattern of 90-degree days that will extend the summer heat until mid-October. Parts of Northern California remain either actively on fire or still dealing with the aftermath of wildfires past, checking mailboxes for FEMA checks that may or may never come. All this is going on while climate change denying Florida demands billions in federal aid as it reels from the devastation caused by Hurricane Ian. That Florida's lack of state taxes left Florida unprepared for. A natural disaster that just brutally sucker-punched Puerto Rico, that a lack of U.S. response to the Hurricane Maria 5 years ago had left virtually defenseless. Meanwhile, in Texas, a state where the oil industry has turned half the state into a hell landscape, a literal toxic waste dump, climate change denying politicians fiddle while Rome burns. They just cash their checks and pledge undying support for the same fossil fuel industry that ignored climate change warnings going back to 1968. The punchline here? Californians get to watch as a Democratic majority federal government that Californians had hoped would finally get things done on climate change actually just gets down on its knees and begs America's oil industry masters for lower gas prices, giving Red State America the gift of ridiculing California efforts to end gasoline-powered car sales in our nation's state by 2035. All in all, a thinly veiled American warning that as California does everything in its power to reduce damage to the global environment, the U.S. federal government will undermine that effort. And as long as California remains part of the United States, that will not change. Because the U.S. Constitution sees to that. Which brings us to our first segment tonight. A brand new California Dreaming with Darin Brown. It's all yours, Darin.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a good week, and I hope you're enjoying this cooler weather that we've had the past couple weeks compared to what we had a couple weeks ago. What I wanted to talk about today is something that came across my email a couple weeks ago. And so in my school email, I got this reminder that September 17th was a very important day. And I was given a lot of information about September 17th. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is September 17th? What does that have to do with anything? Well, I will tell you, because September 17th is Constitution Day. So I got an email reminding me how wonderful the Constitution is and links to a bunch of videos that I could watch and learn about the wonders of the Constitution. And so I got to thinking about it, and I had some thoughts I wanted to share about that. Since I was reminded to think about the U.S. Constitution, I thought maybe we should all think a little bit about the U.S. Constitution. So first thing I want to say is it seems like the United States is kind of exceptional or unique. It's exceptional and unique in a lot of ways, but especially in the way that Americans almost kind of worship the Constitution like it's a religious document. In fact, you may have seen some of those crazy kind of conservative pictures of, you've got George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and Jesus and other figures all kind of around the Constitution with the Bible next to it. Crazy kind of stuff, like the Constitution was inspired by God. And in fact, if you ask a lot of conservatives in the United States, they will say directly that they believe the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were directly inspired by God. But even if you don't have that kind of direct religious connotation to it, Americans, even liberal and left Americans, certainly look up to the Constitution and revere it, even if it's in a secular way. So why is this? What is a Constitution really? Constitution is really just a written down document that a group of people come up with and agree to for how they're going to run their society. Why should that be something that's worshipped? Why should that be something that we idolize to an extent that we can't think critically about it? If you walk up to the average American and you say, maybe there's some things about the Constitution that don't make sense. Maybe there's some things that maybe we should change. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe the whole thing needs to be scrapped. The most common response you'll get is, that's nuts, and you're anti-American, and you don't believe in the country, and we hate you. That's probably the response you're going to get when you say that about the Constitution. So I think that's just kind of irrational. So that's just the first thing I want to point out about the Constitution. It's just a piece of paper, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to talk about it. Now, what is the Constitution? Let's be honest here. And this is something a lot of Americans don't want to hear. Okay. The Constitution was written primarily to protect the property rights. And let's remember, the time it was written, slaves were property. They were considered property. It was written as a document to protect primarily the property rights of rich, white, slave-owning men. That was the overall goal. Now, it had a number of other aspects to it that people sought to put in that I think are good. It's not entirely a bad document, but that's basically what it is. Basically, it's a reactionary document, especially the way the Constitution is before the Reconstruction. So the pre-Reconstruction Constitution, just the first 10 amendments. It's a very reactionary, conservative document. I mean, just think about it. It's such a reactionary document that it had to be amended. They had to put amendments in it to say things like, you can't own another human being. That had to be added to it. Or to say that you should always have due process and equal protection under the law. They had to add that afterwards. Or everyone should have a right to vote. I mean, these are not radical ideas, I don't think. It's not like these are, way out there kind of ideas. But apparently they weren't in the original Constitution. They had to be added. So keep that in mind when you think about the original Constitution, especially when you have people who are thinking to interpret the Constitution in this so-called originalist manner, trying to think about what the intent of the people who originally wrote it were. So that's what the Constitution was. And I think there's three groups of people in America that really don't want to talk about this. They don't want to discuss it. They just want to put their heads in the sand and not think about it at all. The first group is, I'll just call them the Merca, right? Merca's best at everything, right? So everything America does, we're this perfect country, the greatest country in the history of the world. everything we do is perfect. That's how a lot of Americans think about things. So they're just going to think the Constitution is perfect just because it's American. Okay, so that's one group. That's a lot of people. Second group of people who don't want to talk about the Constitution are the people who benefit from it. Who benefits? Small states, Republicans, old white people, conservatives, people who want to maintain the status quo, corporations, the powerful. The Constitution serves all of those people. So they have a vested interest in not talking about it and not questioning it because they benefit from it and they stand to lose a lot. And the third group, I would say, who don't want to talk about the Constitution, and this includes a lot of liberals and even some American leftists, just comes from this notion that, well, we can't scrap the Constitution and start over, right? Because say we had a constitutional convention, there's a lot of people being terrified about a constitutional convention because they say, well, if we have a constitutional convention, what is a constitutional convention? It's basically everybody in the country gets together and decides we're going to scrap the Constitution we have now and start over. Let's talk it all over. Let's just start from scratch, decide what we want democratically. It's a democratic process to decide what a new constitution would be. And these people are terrified of this. Why? Because they're scared that it's going to make for a reactionary, authoritarian document that doesn't preserve people's rights, that sends the country back in time, and that will actually be a regression from the flawed system we have now. Well, when people say that, what are they really saying? So when you hear your average American liberal say, well, no, we can't have a constitutional convention because all these conservatives are going to do crazy things. They're going to take away this right. They're going to take away that right. They're going to roll back time. It's going to be a very regressive document. What they're really saying is that the United States is an authoritarian country. I mean, that's what they're admitting, right? If the U.S. wasn't an authoritarian country, you should welcome a democratic process to rewrite the Constitution. So I think that says a lot right there. So I think those are the groups of people who are not interested in talking about the Constitution or discussing it. And so those are just some thoughts that I wanted to share. I think it's really weird that there's just this idea that this is something that can't be talked about, that this is something that can't be mentioned, that it's just a third rail. The Constitution is not doing a good job. It's not helping us address the problems we have to meet in the future. It's posing, I've gone over this on my podcast, and the Red Star Report has gone over this over and over again, the fundamental anti-democratic parts of the Constitution, that the Senate, the Electoral College, gerrymandering, the fact that it's so difficult to amend and make any changes to. There's a lot of problems. And, if you think you have something that has a problem, the idea is you could start over and make a new document. And I think in the independence movement, our idea is if we're going to start over and just have a new constitution for the entire country, since we don't share the same values as the rest of the country anyway, why don't we just make our own constitution? And that's what I look forward to. I look forward to the time when Californians can come together and we can have our own convention and write our own new California Constitution for California nation. And those are my thoughts for this week. Okay, back to you, Hal.
That was California Dreaming with Darin Brown. It's a well-known talking point in the California independence movement because America's founding fathers installed the Electoral College and the Senate and the Constitution to appease low-population agricultural states. California will never have an equal voice in the federal government as it now stands. A constitutional convention is a possibility to fix this, one way or another. Stay tuned. Next up, the Red Star Report continues with comments on the theme of sacred land and Indigenous people. We have a new independent commentary with David Gregory, a brief discussion with some insights into California's Proposition 26 and Proposition 27. You don't want to miss this, and it starts now.
I just wanted to make a real quick video going over Props 26 and 27, which are dueling propositions in the state of California. So, Proposition 27 is backed by a lot of out-of-state money, and big money too. We're talking Major League Baseballs and several online sports betting franchises. Benefits to this particular proposition would be that it does give money to help alleviate some of the homeless problem. That being said, it's not really supported by that many homeless advocates like it says it is, which should make you relatively suspicious. Furthermore, Proposition 27, what it does is it opens up online sports betting to both tribal and non-tribal businesses. That sounds great, right? You can open up an online sports betting and just go with it, and the tribes get to do it too. Here's where the issue comes in. With Proposition 27, there's a lot of financial barriers towards small business getting involved, as well as small tribes getting involved. One of them being the most lucrative sports betting is you're going to have to get a license for. Those licenses are expensive, around $10 million. Thus, that financial hurdle eliminates most of the tribes from really getting it, or a lot of the tribes from even getting involved in it. So the devil's kind of in the details with it. Proposition 26, on the other hand, is actually supported by the majority of tribes, supported by 60 plus tribes. A little full disclosure here, there may be some bias because I am an enrolled tribal member. That being said, Proposition 26 is supported by more homeless advocacy groups than Proposition 27, which is surprising because Proposition 27 bills itself out as a homeless solution. Proposition 26 keeps that gambling inside the casinos and on tribal lands. So it allows for sports bettings, but it allows for sports betting in tribal situations. That keeps the industry within tribal hands, which is why you're going to see most of the tribes side with this one, because it's a matter of tribal sovereignty, and that is a valuable source of income. And there's also kind of a Pandora's box or a slippery slope worry there that, you know, by adding in non-tribal entities from out of state to come in and open online gaming, they're actually undercutting, pushing out the Indian gaming. You know, that might be a slippery slope to lead to them opening up casinos and other forms and means of gambling, if you know what I mean. So, for me personally, it is a no on 27 and a yes on 26. If you vote yes on both of these measures, and both of them were to pass, there would be a big legal battle after that, because you can't really have them both. They're, you know. So, and there's a chance that'll happen too. But my advice, and the advice of some elders that I've talked to, is definitely a no on 27 and a yes on Proposition 26.
That was independent commentary from Red Star Report contributor David Gregory. For more information on Proposition 26 and Proposition 27, please go to the websites, whose links we will include below. And as always, Red Star Report encourages you to show your California values and go vote on November 8th. For our final Red Star Report segment tonight, we go to Activism in Action with Shankar Singam for an interview with California National Party endorsed candidate for the Montebello Unified School District here in Southern California, Reveles. Let's go to Shankar.
Thank you, Hal. Welcome to another episode of Activism in Action. And boy, do I have a doozy today, Hal. Oh my God. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So we have a lot of races happening this November. One of them happens to be for the Montebello School District. And you won't believe who's running. I mean, I know we have our share of political criminals here, or politicians that are corrupt and whatnot, but this one takes the cake. So we've got Marisol Madrigal, or Marisol Uribe, who is currently the vice president of the Montebello School District. She's the incumbent running for her race, which is all fine and dandy. She's an instructor at LAUSD. Great. She teaches a class in, I don't know, nutrition. I'm not even sure what she teaches. But here's the kicker. Her husband, Reynaldo Madrigal, has made the news. How? Because everybody's kung fu fighting. So get this. Now this is a bit involved, so pay attention real close. You have the former mayor of Commerce, the wonderful Mr. John Soria, who was in a brawl at the Contract Cities convention at the Renaissance Hotel in Indian Wells between other council members. So he went to this convention, the mayor of Commerce, and he got in a fight with the other council members at Indian Wells Renaissance Hotel. So it's the casino. And in that fight, I guess he got punched, he got beat up. He felt the need for a bodyguard, so he brought a bodyguard into the next city council meeting. They wanted the bodyguard to identify himself. He wouldn't identify himself. He was a 5'10", 170, weighed about 170 pounds, and he kept quiet, standing behind the mayor, John Soria, until he was recognized as a Reynaldo Madrigal by one of the people at this meeting. Interestingly, because of the fight that broke out at Indian Wells, there was 6 sheriffs at this meeting. But still, Mr. Mayor John Soria thought he should bring his own bodyguard, which is this little man, Reynaldo Madrigal, married to Marisol Madrigal. So this guy is not a bodyguard. He's not armed, and yet he's somehow protecting the mayor of Commerce. Here's the weird thing. He's on the payroll under the city as a bodyguard. He's not a trained bodyguard, has no firearm protection, but he's getting paid for 12, 13, 15 hours worth of work every day protecting the mayor as a bodyguard. Okay, fine, he can. But then you have his wife, who is the vice president of Montebello Unified School District, and therein lies the conflict of interest. Therein lies the scandal in itself. So it almost seems as if Marisol has just disqualified herself by taking a conflict of interest in having her husband be the bodyguard for the mayor of Commerce, John Soria. If you look at the mayor, look at this picture of the mayor of Commerce. He looks like a thug, straight up thug. I can't believe he's the mayor. That's because the people of City Commerce don't pay attention to when they vote, who they're voting for. And this guy probably vote with about 500 people voting for him. His buddies probably. And that's what this woman is probably counting on as she gets her position, her incumbent position refilled again this November as a school board. So with me to hopefully tell me a little bit more about it is another candidate running for office. His name is Aaron Reveles. Aaron, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a little bit of a late night, a long day, but doing pretty good besides that.
Yeah, thank you again for doing this interview, my man. So it seems kind of sorted. This is one of your opponents that you're running against. How does your campaign differ from hers? I mean, are you involved in fights or gangs or any of those qualities that we want to teach our kids? I mean, what makes you different from her, my friend?
No, I haven't been involved in a fight or any stuff like that. I heard rumors about some of the other candidates before something like this, but I didn't really pay like much mind to it. That stuff doesn't really matter to me. The most I looked into anyone of the other candidates' personal lives is just what they do for a living. I saw that she teaches classes at the Cal State LA, and I just know what the other candidates do. I didn't really peer too much into their personal lives because for me, what I care about, I'm a teacher, and why I'm running is I cared about students' education. So that's what I more focus on.
So yeah, that's right, Aaron. You're a teacher. You're at LA Unified School District. You actually teach K through 12, somewhere in there, K through 12 or junior high. So you've got in no fights, right? You don't have a wife or a girlfriend that's involved in any fights. Any family members that are bodyguards or anything? I don't think so. So tell me, what do you think? What are the main concerns that you want to alleviate at Montebello Unified School District?
So what I'm telling people, the main reason why I'm running is because what I've seen as a teacher, a community organizer, and someone who has a master's in education, specifically teaching young children, I've learned that students in poverty cannot teach unless their basic needs are met. And you, like myself, we know a lot about Californian politics. It's very easy to fall under the California poverty line just because the cost of living here is so high. So there's a lot of students in not just in our district, but across California who are not having their basic needs met at home, and that they can't have any education done if they have to worry about if they're gonna, be in the same place to sleep that night, if they're hungry, if they're worried about, their family members getting sick and not having health care. So there's a lot of things going on with our students that we're not even talking about.
So, having school board members get into fights certainly doesn't help them at all. I mean, what kind of a role model is that? What kind of role model are they teaching our kids if they're getting in brawls, they need bodyguards? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It sounds like you're the type of person that Montebello Unified really needs, an actual teacher concerned about the poverty of the level of the kids that are in the district, my man. Man, is there anything you want to add about your campaign or the school district? Anything at all you want to say? Yeah.
A little bit to set myself out. I kind of tell people about the current situation of our district. So currently we have billionaires who are using charter schools to privatize our education for their own profit. At the same time, many inside the district themselves, they're not listening to the voices of their community members. Just a couple of years, about 6 years ago, the district itself, the superintendent got in a big trouble with money issues, taking money for himself and deals with the school board members who were also taking money for themselves.
Seems like a lot of that's going around.
Yes, it's going around. It's pretty terrible, when a city councilor and a mayor does it, because it's taking tax money away from people. But I think it's especially disgusting when you're doing it, taking food away from a child's mouth or taking education away from their brain. So I think it's just horrendous especially when it's our children that are being stolen from.
Absolutely. There you go, folks. You have an actual corruption fighter, a guy that's against all this corruption that's happening right there, and the powers that be are in control. They're corrupt as can be. Well, one of his opponents is on the city on the take for this from the city that the mayor's paying him as a bodyguard. Guy has no training. I mean, the corruption is rampant in Los Angeles County, and when one of a righteous rise. We have to throw our support. Aaron, where can we find out more information about your campaign and yourself?
Yes, so if you go to Reveles 4, so the word FOR 4, not the number, MUSD, so Reveles4MUSD.com, and that also has all the links to my socials. It has about my platform. I'm the only candidate with an actually comprehensive platform. It's more than just, 3 vague points that I can end up saying, oh, I meant this. No, like it's comprehensive, so I can't go back on my word. I mean what I say. So yeah, it's all up there.
Awesome. Aaron, thank you very much for joining us. Folks, that's all I got. Listen, fight the corruption, folks. And it starts with you getting out to vote. And Red Star Report wants to let you know, please go out and vote this November. Get out there. Don't go. If you know they're corrupt, if they even have an inkling of news that they're on the take, don't. Vote for the new guy. Vote for some fresh faces in there. We don't need the same old people who have left us in this mess that we're in right now. Still doing that same old job. Let's make a change, folks. Get out this November and vote from Red Star Report. Hal, that's all I got. Back to you.
Thank you, Shankar, and thank you, Aaron Reveles. Red Star Report hopes to hear more from Aaron Reveles in the coming weeks and wishes him very good luck in the coming elections. Aaron, don't be a stranger. That's it for this week. For more Red Star Report information, check out our website at redstarreport.com. That's redstarreport.com. Subscribe to our Red Star Report YouTube channel. Go to our Red Star Report Facebook page, Twitter, or Instagram accounts, and give us a like, give us a follow. Just give us something. Because if you want to support the real California Independence Movement's media group, and that's us, wow, surprised, it's all about the algorithms. Our thanks to you, our Red Star Rebels, for watching. We are Red Star Report.